I've been thinking a lot more as of late about how the medical system has ultimately failed me and how it's not just me that it has failed and continues to fail. And I think that I've been grappling with some pretty big feelings around that. So I want to have a bit of a conversation with you about some kind of nuanced, complicated, emotional topics around this. But first, I just want to provide another disclaimer that I am not recommending you go off your meds or you kind of go rogue in your treatment of your mental illness. Everything you do needs to be done in conjunction with your care team. I can't stress that enough. I have been doing this whole project of undergoing metabolic therapies under close medical supervision, and that is a really critical element in ensuring you are staying safe. I also am going to bring up some complicated and negative, somewhat, feelings around medication as being the primary treatment method for me over the last decade plus. And I want to, again, just stress that it is a nuanced conversation. I am sharing my personal experience. Under no circumstances am I suggesting that anyone else goes off their meds, reduces their meds, or even does what I've been doing over the last 7 months to treat their own mental illness. What I am doing is simply providing what my experience has been and kind of reflecting on it openly with you all as well. I think also there's this really big and increasing problem within the world of polarization just kind of running rampant. And I'm kind of surprised to see that even something like my experience of using metabolic therapies over the last 7 months has resulted in some level of polarization as well amongst our audience and people following along. And so I don't really want to be a part of that. I really want to encourage everyone to be as open as possible to these various sharings of experience and discussions about really nuanced and complicated topics that deserve more than just kind of an all or nothing mentality. So I talked about grappling and dealing with some big feelings around my experience of the mental health care system over the last 10, 15 years of my life. The title of this video is It Was Never Going to Work. And I think that that's actually a conclusion that I came to a while ago, even, that the mental health care system and the way we treat and manage these types of illnesses is just never really going to lead to full recovery. I actually did a video a couple years ago with that exact title, I Will Never Recover, kind of going into accepting that as a reality. But over the last 7 months, my understanding of what's possible in terms of recovery and even remission has done a complete 180, or perhaps a better description of has opened and blossomed to be so much broader or, so much more possibility. I think I'm particularly having a hard time with accepting what my medical treatment for my schizoaffective disorder has looked like over the last 10 years. In the last week, maybe even, several days, where I'm having this experience of basically almost being on no psychiatric medication again and having this experience of almost like stepping back into the full experience of who I am as a person. I've been trying to explain this to Rob over the last few days, just the difference in the fullness of my experience of the world and of my emotions and of my thoughts and of my relationships and just the world around me, just kind of feeling like it's opening back up again. And I have to assume that has to do somewhat, at least, with this correlational tapering I'm doing off of my antipsychotic medication. For the longest time, I knew that it did things like blunting my experience of emotions of the world. It slowed me down cognitively. I knew these things because I, could understand how they affected me, but it just started to become so enmeshed with my reality of how I had to live that I don't know if I even really was aware a lot of the time of how those medications were detrimentally affecting me and my experience of life. I think really I became habituated and kind of forced myself to accept a bit of a substandard way of existing. Again, because of how these medications or the way I was managing my illness was kind of harmfully affecting me. And I think that, I'm dealing with a bit of anger or resentment, frustration that I was just immediately shuttled into this line of psychiatric medication and was just kind of forced to endure that and endure trying medication after medication after medication that really all affected my life in these negative ways. I was never presented with an alternative way of improving my health that didn't have to do with just taking medication. And again, I want to clarify that medication has been really helpful for me at times in terms of deafening symptoms. And that's really what they are for, is to kind of stifle the experience of distressing symptoms. And they did their job at various points in my life, and I'm grateful for that. But I don't think that that is fully understanding or giving enough importance to how they negatively impact a person who's taking them as well. The Hippocratic oath that all medical doctors take is to first do no harm. And I understand that sometimes this entails maybe doing a bit of harm in order to prevent the greater harm. For example, a surgeon who needs to remove a tumor or something from someone's body, and so they cut into them to perform surgery, which essentially is harming that person's body to repair the greater issue. And I understand that that is somewhat what is going on in psychiatry with the prescription of these medications that are doing harm to the patient. But ultimately, there's the belief that they are, in general, improving the lives of these patients. I think, though, that what I'm realizing is psychiatry has maybe lost its way a little bit, or lost touch with the ultimate goal of allowing the patient to thrive, or to be able to, or have the opportunity to thrive. Yes, medications have improved my quality of life just in terms of reducing the experience of symptoms and whatnot, but I think that that's ignoring the many other factors that a person could work on or address in order to improve their overall quality of life and experience of their illness that don't have to do with just taking medications. I think I was a little bit surprised in my last video when I shared my really real and authentic in the moment reaction to the phone call that I had with my psychiatrist, where I was confused about him not being more curious about what I had been doing to improve my life so drastically while also getting off the medications that I had had to take for the last 10 plus years. I was confused by that and maybe even a little bit upset. Yeah, I think I was kind of taken aback a little bit by how much people latched onto this and really, really strongly criticized my psychiatrist for this. I think criticizing my psychiatrist, or any individual psychiatrist or doctor who is maybe not curious or open to alternative interventions to treat mental illness, such as metabolic therapies, is kind of missing the problem. Whereby I think that the problem really more so lies in our societal beliefs about illness and about mental illness. And yeah, just kind of the dogma around all of this and the medical system at large. Almost our entire medical system, as it stands currently, and mental health care system especially, is really largely focused on symptom management and treating the onset of symptoms as a result of illness or impairment of health systems. It doesn't focus really at all on promoting health and wellness or prevention of illness or disease, or really getting at underlying root causes of illness and disease that result in symptoms that we throw medication at to just kind of cover up or mask. I think there also needs to be an understanding of how humans in general are just kind of adverse to change. And so I think it needs to be understood a little bit more empathically, I guess, that we've come to a space in mental health care, medical care in general, where we think we understand best practices. It can be hard for people to be open to new ways of doing things, and that includes really smart, educated people like physicians or psychiatrists. There was tons of pushback from everyone watching this channel when we first introduced that we were going to be using metabolic therapies to treat my schizoaffective disorder. And yeah, I was kind of taken aback by that resistance or fear, even sometimes at first. But throughout this project, I've really come to realize and do a lot of my own internal reflection about how I have that, internal fear response as well to suggestions of big change like this, or asking people to change the way they think about or understand something as big in their life as their mental illness, or how to treat and manage that illness. It's been really interesting, maybe a little bit funny or wild or confusing, how everyone really seems to have or hold some form of somewhat arbitrary beliefs about health and wellness, or even about what it is I personally should be doing in my own medical journey. And that's been an interesting thing to kind of be more cognizant of throughout this project. I've had loved ones or friends come up to me and say, I just don't know who to trust or what to believe in this convoluted, oversaturated sphere or world of health and wellness. There seems to be so much conflicting information out there about what you need to do in order to stay healthy. And I'm becoming more aware of how difficult that is for people, myself included, to wade through. But that said, I think we do need to bring more awareness to when beliefs we may hold or understandings we may hold about health or best practices or whatever are not really founded on good science, or are just not really serving us. And, kind of an example of what I mean by this is I've gotten so much feedback from people about their opinions of how I should be gauging the effectiveness of this intervention or of tapering my medications, whereby people are saying to me with great authority that I will not be able to know if this was an effective treatment or if I was successful in getting off my medications until 2 months after fully going off my medications. Or someone else saying with equal authority that I won't fully know this until 6 months of fully being off my medications. Or yet again, someone else saying to me with perhaps even more authority that I won't fully know the effectiveness of this and the success until 2 years after fully getting off medication. And so maybe where I'm going with this is just that I want to kind of encourage everyone to really approach things like these and our understanding of health and our own health in terms of leaning more into doing legitimate research and really kind of tuning into what it is that your own body is needing or asking of you. So please, this is a broad appeal and request to please stop telling me that I should not be going off of my medications. I have been making this decision and doing it relatively slowly over the last 7 months, very much under the supervision of my care team, and really just trying to do what feels the best for my own personal health and wellness. I'm actually doing this medication taper even slower than what my psychiatrist recommended to me, because that was just what felt right for my body and what felt right based off of the additional research I did into what is safe and healthy in terms of getting off psychiatric medications. You really shouldn't just go off your medication or reduce your medication without being under proper supervision of a medical care team, a psychiatrist, or someone who has an understanding of what to do and how to help you if things should go wrong, or just how to guide you in terms of how to do it in the safest and most effective way. But a reminder that I have been doing that, and I have been approaching this all from a very methodical and intentional way or framework. And yeah, it's really been informed by what has felt the best for me throughout this process. I was watching an interview with Dr. Georgia Ede, and she basically told the interviewer that what is going to be the healthiest or brain healthiest options, diet-wise or intervention-wise, are ultimately going to look different from person to person. Everyone has a little bit of different needs, or different things work better for their bodies and their brains. And that perhaps is a difficult concept to wrap our head around, in terms of there not being this easy blanket solution that is going to just apply to everyone. But I think that does make some space, I guess, for each person to lean into making decisions that are ultimately feeling the best for their own personal health and well-being. And so maybe we can all just focus a little bit more on how to take care of ourselves, rather than pushing our own beliefs or what works for us onto other people. I'm reading a book right now called Wellness. It's written by Nathan Hill, and it's fiction, so take this with a grain of salt, but they explore kind of the idea of the placebo effect and wellness culture in general. At one point in the book, they actually refer to the placebo effect as more the meaning effect, which I kind of liked, and that kind of helped to explain more why that can be so effective with, health interventions and stuff, whereby people see some kind of intervention as being meaningful to them in some way, or will have some greater impact on their life, thus making it more likely to be a successful intervention. I guess there's more buy-in when we derive meaning from something. And so I just thought that was maybe an interesting potential factor for what could be also a bit of what's at play, and just in terms of the idea of taking fuller ownership over your own health and well-being. And I kind of wondered if that could be part of the reason why there is so much different opinions and conflicting information about what is the best approach to health and wellness, because ultimately what is tying all of these different approaches that people are sharing and promoting together is this concept or idea of that person taking ownership and direction over their own health and well-being. And so I think it's important to maybe not discount how that could also improve your health and well-being, or even the success of whatever intervention you're putting into play. Now, that said, there have been a lot of people who have been like, oh, it's the medical ketogenic diet is just the placebo effect for Lauren, like this is nothing. And that's not really what I'm saying, because I think we do need to acknowledge that this intervention has eradicated my hallucinations, paranoia, these really substantial symptoms that derive from my brain not working properly. And so for the placebo effect to have that powerful of an impact, I don't believe that could be true at all. But yeah, just reflecting on how I think it's important to really lean into that idea of taking ownership over your own health and wellness. And really, I guess that maybe ties in what I was saying in the beginning about being disappointed with kind of feeling let down by the medical system and by traditional medical interventions, and really learning and understanding through this process the huge importance of self-advocacy, taking your own health and well-being into your own hands a little bit, and advocating for yourself within that medical system that maybe isn't always serving you in the best or most effective ways. Scientific evidence around the effectiveness of the medical ketogenic diet in treating serious mental illnesses like schizophrenia or bipolar, etc., are starting to come out. We have results from pilot trials, and there are several randomized control trials that I know about that are already in progress. And so we are going to have definitive results very soon about the effectiveness of this intervention in terms of treating and managing mental illness. But the thing that I maybe want to communicate here is that even when these results come out, and if they are positive in terms of definitively saying that they are very effective in treating these illnesses, you are probably still not going to hear about it from your treating physicians or psychiatrists. And again, this isn't because your psychiatrist or your treating professional is bad or unethical or neglectful or any of these things. It really, again, comes back to the societal issues that I was talking about earlier, our medical system in general, and really just how hard it is for humans to change or to accept changes. And so perhaps this is the time for me to encourage anyone who's watching to take your health and well-being into your own hands. Try to really take that sense of ownership over your own health and well-being, over managing whatever illness you may be facing. And yeah, do your own research about what is going to be the best option for you and advocate thoroughly with your health team for them to support you in doing those things. I think that if I had never discovered medical keto and metabolic therapies, I didn't discover them, but stumbled upon the evidence or indications that it could work, I never would have known how much better it could be. I think had I not tried medical keto, I would have been okay. I built this whole channel over the last 6-7 years on figuring out how to be okay living with a chronic illness like schizoaffective disorder. But that doesn't mean that I didn't or wouldn't have still struggled immensely with the daily realities of living with an illness like that, and the realities of the really difficult and life-impeding side effects of the medications that I was on to manage it. If I had just continued to keep taking psychiatric medication, I would have found some way to still, live my life hopefully well while on that. But ultimately, it was never going to work in terms of curing my illness or putting it into remission or just addressing the underlying causes of why I was experiencing a distressing illness. Throughout the last 7 months of using medical keto as an intervention for my schizoaffective disorder, I've been slowly realizing, wow, my experience of my illness and subsequently of my life can be so much better. But, especially over the last week of this last taper of basically almost being off of my psychiatric medication, again, it really just feels like my world is opening back up. And that is something I think I had just kind of written off as a possibility for me and for my life as someone who had been diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. It's a lot. It's a lot to wrap my head around all of this. It's a lot to process why our medical system is the way it is, why I was just prescribed these medications without much thought into how it was affecting or impacting my life on a broader scale. Recovery or remission were just not within the realm of possibility for me. But over the last 7 months, that has opened up as an option that I'm choosing to step into, and it's feeling really incredible. So thank you so much for watching this video and for following along with me on this metabolic therapy journey. As always, wishing you and your loved ones good health, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.